Welcome to the Wardrill Faction Dossier. My name is Sarv, and if you follow the weekly meta report, this is its sibling show. The weekly covers the whole field in one pass. The dossier picks one faction and goes as deep as the data lets us go. The players, their lists, who they actually played into, and what the math says about all of it. Today, as promised in the weekly report, the fish are biting, the Tau Empire. Battlesuits, drones, gun lines, and a doctrine that is all about picking the moment and deleting a target from range. And the reason they earned a dossier this week is simple. Over the newest tournament weekend, Tau posted their best numbers of the edition and put 3 separate players on undefeated 5-0 runs at 3 different events. Before we dig in, the usual honesty. All of this is BCP data. Grand tournaments of 5 or more rounds, and the edition is exactly 3 weekends old. 67 Tau lists is a real sample, more than most factions have given us, but the story is moving fast, so treat every trend here as an early read. One more bit of housekeeping. I read a lot of player names on this show, straight off the tournament software. If I mangle yours, I apologize in advance. Correct me in the comments, and I will get it right next time. Let's open the dossier. The health check. 67 Tau lists out of 1,033 so far, so about 6.5% of the field. That is a well-populated army, not a boutique one. The win rate sits at 50 7/10% across 366 games, which is 13th of the 31 factions in the data. Squarely mid-table, just a hair above the balance line. 32 of the 67 lists finished with a winning record, and here's the headline. 5 outright event wins already, more than any other faction in these files. Now the trend, because this is why we are here. Week 1, Tau opened at 55% on a handful of lists. Week 2, with the field flooding in, they slid to 43. And then, the newest weekend, 30 lists strong, they jumped back up to 57%. That is the surge, and it came with those 3 5-0 runs we mentioned. One more note for calibration. Out in the wider pool, the smaller events and the opens, Tau sit at 51.5% across 197 lists. Warmer than the GT floor, colder than the GT ceiling. My read, and it is only a read, this is a skill army riding a build that is still being figured out, and the good pilots are ahead of the curve. Inside the faction, here is how the lists actually split up, and it looks different once you read what each army is really running instead of the single label the tournament software slapped on it. A lot of these lists field 2 detachments at once. 3 detachment points buys a pair, and 1 pairing rises above everything else. Advanced Acquisition Cadre together with Retaliation Cadre, 23 lists at 57%. And here is the headline. All 3 of the weekend's 5-0 pilots were on exactly that pairing. Retaliation brings the gun rule, Bonded Heroes, which we will unpack in the reviews. Advanced Acquisition bolts a hidden scout screen on top of it. Level with it on popularity is mont'ka, 22 lists, but only treading water around 49%. Then the smaller recipes, and this is where honest labeling changes the story. Advanced Acquisition with Calyon, 8 lists, but sitting right at 49%, dead average. One of those 8 is Sean Martin's Hell Pit winning list, but the recipe as a whole is not the outlier it first looked like. And on the cold end, Experimental Prototype with Calyon at 35 over 7 lists. Once you count pairings honestly, the single detachment armies almost vanish. 2 lists on Retaliation by itself. 1 lonely list on plain Calyon, and Experimental Prototype never shows up alone at all. One more angle, because a pairing can bury a component. Count every list that contains a detachment regardless of its partner, and Advanced Acquisition turns up in 32 lists, nearly half the faction, at 54%. Retaliation in 25 at 57. So the real shape is a 2-part engine. Retaliation for the guns, Acquisition for the screen, carrying this faction together, while the purely aggressive detachments come up short. Zoom out from the detachment labels, and the 67 lists collapse into 4 real army ideas. Build 1, the Retaliation gun line. A wall of Crisis battlesuits, 2 or 3 Riptides, and the Twin Lance, all leaning on bonded heroes to hit harder the closer they get. Paired with Advanced Acquisition, that shell runs 23 lists at 57%, and all 3 of the weekend's 5-0 runs are on it. Retaliation on its own is only 2 lists. Build 2, the Patient gun line. Advanced Acquisition with Callion, the same suits but built to hide, hold, and turn the screws in the back half of the game. Once you label it honestly, it is 8 lists at 49%, a hair under even. Sean Martin's Help It winning list lives here, but the recipe as a whole sits mid-pack, not the outlier a quick glance suggests. Build 3, mont'ka Aggression, the early game Alpha Strike detachment. It is one of the most played ideas in the faction and the most average, right around 49. And Build 4, the Prototype Experiment, long-range battlesuit characters reaching out and touching things from further than anyone expects. On paper, it is beautiful. On the tables, it is at 35% across 7 lists, the worst of the played builds. 2 of today's reviews are that winning shell, back-to-back 5-0 runs. The third is the Cautionary Tale, a prototype list from the same weekend that went 1 and 4, and it shows exactly why the pretty build finishes last. Now the units, and this is the table I'd screenshot if you are building Tau this month, stealth battlesuits are in 91% of lists. Pathfinder teams in 82. Those are your board control auto-includes, and like auto-includes everywhere, they sit right around 50%, because everyone runs them so they can't tell winners from losers. Read past those. The Twin Lance is the one I would circle. It shows up in 3/4 of every list, and the lists running it average 54.7%. A near auto-include that still outperforms its own popularity is rare, and that is a genuine signal. The Riptide is the workhorse, 73% of lists, and they bring 2.2 of them on average, so plan around a pair. Down the sheet, 3 quiet standouts. Commander Farsight, 40% of lists, carried at 55. The Crisis Fire Knife suits and the Enforcer Commander, both around 54. And a real sleeper, the Skyray Gunship, in only 13% of lists, but those lists average 57%. The old missile boat still earns its slot. Everything else is on your screen, including the Storm Surge, which at 43% carrier win rate is the big centerpiece that looks great and keeps missing its weekend. Tau look like a shooting army, but the winning lists are a leader attachment faction underneath, and the pairings are remarkably consistent. The single most repeated attachment is a commander in a Cold Star battlesuit joining a unit of Crisis Sunforge suits, 17 times across these lists. Right behind it, the same Cold Star commander tucked into Crisis Starscythe suits, 13 times. Then, the Enforcer Commander leading Crisis Fire Knife suits, 12 times. Commander Farsight himself rides with a Sunforge or a Starscythe unit 10 and 8 times respectively. See the pattern? A battlesuit character climbs inside a battlesuit squad, and now the whole brick moves and shoots as one buffed threat. There is also a quieter infantry line. A Cadre Fireblade leading a Breacher team 7 times, for the players who still want boots holding the middle. If you use the Wardrill app, here is my honest tip for the week. Run the leader attachment drills on those commander into crisis pairs. Knowing exactly what the commander adds to the squad and how bonded heroes stacks on top without checking 3 cards mid-turn is free percentage. Matchups. This is every Tau game we've captured so far, all event sizes, so a wider net than the GT table, and the best picture we have this early. Start with the green. Against Eldari, Tau are at 79% over 29 games, the standout green lane. Black Templars, 83 over 12. Leagues of Votan, World Eaters, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and Sisters all sit comfortably on the right side of 50. Now the one everyone asks about, because it is the largest sample on the board. Necrons, 74 games, and it lands on exactly 50%. Not a green lane, a coin flip, and it is the army Tau see most, so that even split matters. Then the red. Imperial Knights are the lane to respect, 41% across 44 games, a big enough sample to trust. Adeptus Mechanicus is actually the coldest at 35, though on half the games. Emperor's Children and Drukhari round out the soft spots, and Chaos Demons sit just under the line at 47, closer to even than their reputation. I am not going to force one reason on all of it, because the bad lanes do not all rhyme. But the clearest one, Imperial Knights, is the invuln and wounds problem a precision gun army always has, and Calc Corner is about to show you what that looks like. If you are taking the greater good to an event this month, Knights are the rep to practice, and do not walk into the Necron matchup expecting a freebie. Calc Corner is the segment only Wardrill can do because the app carries a full damage engine, the same one behind the heat map. We just flagged Imperial Knights as the lane to respect, so let's put a Knight under the lamp with the guns off Sean Martin's Hell Pit winning list. Scenario 1, the Knight's problem. A single Riptide, Ion Accelerator on overcharge, into a Knight Castellan. 5.1 expected damage into 28 wounds. One suit barely scratches it, which is exactly why the answer is volume. You point the whole gun line at one Knight, not one clever shot. Scenario 2, the efficient answer. The Twin Lance into a Land Raider Redeemer, a 2+ save with 16 wounds. 8.3 damage, and the Fusion Eliminator carves straight through that save, taking half the tank in a round. That is the model. Bring a gun that ignores the save instead of just piling on shots. And Scenario 3, the Invuln Wall, or what looks like one. That same Riptide into a Catan Shard of the Nightbringer. 2.9 damage because the Catan's 4+ Invulnerable ignores all of Tau's stacked armor penetration. But here is the honest part, and it is worth saying out loud. That 4+ is a dice roll, not a force field. The Catan lives and dies by it, and against a real volume of Tau shots, half of those saves fail. 2.9 is the average after the dice. A cold run of invuln rolls, and even a Catan comes apart. A hot one, and it walks away clean. That is the shape of every invuln heavy target. The Knight's lane is the other flavor, less about the save and more about the raw wound count we saw in Scenario 1, but it asks for the same answer. Tau crack ordinary armor beautifully, and the hard lanes get solved with more guns, not one clever shot. List review 1, and it is the cleanest expression of the winning build. Oliver Campbell, the Northeast Open, a 77-player field, Advanced Acquisition and Retaliation Cadre on Purge the Foe, 5-0, first place. Look at the composition, because there is almost nothing on it that is not a battlesuit. Commander Farsight up front, 2 Riptides, the Twin Lance, 2 units of Crisis Fire Knife suits, a Starscythe unit, a Sunforge unit, and 3 more commanders, 2 Cold Stars and an Enforcer, ready to climb inside those Crisis squads. 2 Pathfinder teams and 2 stealth units to hold ground and screen. Now the complement, and it is the whole point of the list. Retaliation Cadre's detachment rule is bonded heroes. Every Tau battlesuit gets +1 strength when it shoots a target within 12 inches, and +1 armor penetration on top when that target is within 9. Oliver's army is nothing but battlesuits, so every gun in it gets meaner the closer it fights. This list is built from the ground up to trigger its own rule. The critique is the one Calc Corner already flagged. There is no single assassin here for a Knight-sized target. Oliver's answer is to point the whole buffed gun line at one thing and delete it by volume. And across 5 rounds, that answer held. Here is how Oliver's weekend actually went, round by round, because a 5-0 never tells you who was across the table. Round 1, an Imperial Knights list on Disruption, 89-72. Straight into the lane we just called the toughest, and he won it. Round 2, a Chaos Space Marines list, 100-59. Round 3, Death Guard, 100-87. Round 4, Necrons, 96-67. The even lane on our board, banked clean by nearly 30. And Round 5, the closer, Colin Powers' Chaos Demons at 4-1, 92-82. He beat a Demons list, a lane that leans against Tau in the game that decided the event. 5-0 through a genuinely mixed field. Now the posture note, because people always ask. Oliver sat on Purge the Foe all 5 rounds, and Purge sits as a neutral posture right around even. The mission deck handed him nothing. The gun line did this, not the posture. Review 2 is the same shell, a very different flavor. Casper Wennerby, the golf tournament circuit event in Dubai, the same advanced acquisition and retaliation build, but this time on reconnaissance, 5-0, first place. Where Oliver went pure guns, Casper wrapped his around a toolbox. Still the retaliation core, Farsight, a Cold Star and an Enforcer commander, the Twin Lance, a Star Scythe and a Sunforge unit, 2 Riptides, a Ghost Keel. But look at the outer shell. A Kroot Trail Shaper and Kroot Carnivores, a unit of Vespid Stingwings, a Piranha, 3 Pathfinder teams. That is a whole layer of cheap, fast bodies whose job is to run the reconnaissance actions and screen the suits. What makes it tick is a stratagem, the Shortened Blade, which lets a retaliation battlesuit unit deep strike more than 6 inches from the enemy instead of the usual 9. That is how a slow-looking gun line suddenly lands in bonded heroes range, 12 inches out, buffed and ready. The wrinkle worth holding on to is the posture, and it is the open question of the episode. Reconnaissance only grades out around average across the whole field, but Tau's own recon lists are running well above that. Keep it in mind for the run. Casper's run is a clinic in taking the game to people. Round 1, World Eaters, 99 to 29. That is not a typo. He held a Berserker Warband to 29 points. Round 2, Fernando Nahum's Custodes, 100 to 74. Round 3, Space Wolves, 100 to 65. Round 4, Admech, 97 to 80. And round 5, Remco Hensepeter's Necrons at 4-1, 99 to 77. An average winning margin of about 34 points across the event. That is dominance, not variance. Now the posture, the thread I promised. Casper played reconnaissance every round. Across the whole field, that posture lands around even, a touch soft into a couple of missions, so the tidy story is that he simply outplayed an ordinary hand. But hold that, because the faction cut tells a different story. Tau on reconnaissance are at 68% right now. 7 lists, small but not nothing, and Casper is not the only one running it. Whether that number is real is the question we come back to at the end. Review 3 is the other side of the coin, and it is the one I think teaches the most. Mark Jenkins, the same Northeast Open that Oliver just won, but a completely different army. The experimental prototype cadre, the build we called beautiful on paper and worst on the table. 1-4 on the weekend, and stay with me because the record is not the story. Look at the list. Commander Farsight and a Cold Star commander carrying Precision of the Patient Hunter, Dark Strider, a Cadre Fireblade, and then a spread of long-range guns. 3 broadsides, a hammerhead, a lone riptide, and a 360-point storm surge anchoring the back. It is a genuine toolbox, a little of everything, built to reach out and delete targets from range. To its credit, the plan is real. Those battlesuit characters hit hard from a long way off, further than most armies expect. But here is what is off, and it is the same lesson Calc Corner keeps hammering. This list is single clever shots, not volume. 1 Riptide, where the winners bring 2 or 3. A Storm Surge that our own unit page has at 43%. The centerpiece that looks great and keeps missing its weekend. And nothing like Oliver's all-battlesuit engine, where every gun feeds 1 rule. Precision is lovely until the target has an invuln or a mountain of wounds, and then you needed the 2nd and 3rd gun you did not bring. Mark's rounds are why I wanted this list in the episode. Round 1, World Eaters, and he got run over 63 to 96. But then look what happens. Round 2, Necrons, 76 to 84, a loss by 8. Round 3, Chaos Knights, and he wins big, 97 to 31. Round 4, Death Guard, 72 to 73, a 1-point loss. In round 5, Custodes, 80 to 90, down by 10. Read that again. 3 of his 4 losses were by 8, 1, and 10, and they came against Necrons in Death Guard and Custodes, armies stacked with wounds and feel no pain in 2+ saves. That is the prototype build in one afternoon. After round 1, it competes with everyone, reaching the final turn dead level, and it cannot find the last bracket of damage to close, because it is precision without volume. In the Death Guard game is the dice point in miniature, 72 to 73. One bracket of saves the other way, and he takes it. You live and die by those rolls, and a list built on a few big guns feels those swings harder than a gun line that just throws more dice. Same faction, same weekend as Oliver's 5-0. Opposite result in the same math underneath. Quick pause before the crystal ball. If this deep dive is useful to you, a like and a subscribe genuinely moves the needle for a channel this size, and it tells me to keep making these. Everything you saw today, the win rates, the matchup lanes, the damage math, lives in the Wardrill app, refreshed every week. Paste your own list in, and the same engine that ran our Calc Corner will tell you exactly what your battlesuits kill and what shrugs them off. iOS and Android, links below. And to my Patreon supporters, you specifically are why a one-person stat show gets to exist. Thank you. Before I sign off, 3 predictions for the next Tau dossier, on the record so you can grade me. 1. The Retaliation Shell holds. Advanced Acquisition and Retaliation together, 23 lists at 57%, and 3 5-0 runs in a single weekend. If that sample keeps growing and the number stays north of 55, that is the build, and I expect the field to copy the all-battlesuit bonded hero structure. 2. Reconnaissance is the one I am watching, and I am not calling it either way yet. Tau on Reconnaissance are at 68% on 7 lists, and 2 of this weekend's undefeated runs leaned on it. Across the field, the posture is only ordinary, so the safe money is regression, but Tau bring the mobility and the hidden screens Reconnaissance asks for, and this edition is 3 weekends old. If that number holds as more pilots learn it, that is an edge forming. If it sags toward 50, it was the pilots. One more weekend before I plant a flag. And 3, the red lanes settle. Right now, Imperial Knights sit at 41% over a solid 44 games, and that is the lane I trust to stay red. Invulns and wound counts as far as the eye can see. The smaller cold lanes, Admech at 35, Emperor's Children at 41, I want more games on before I call them. And Necrons are the tell. 74 games at an even 50, the army Tau face most. If that number tips a few points either way next time, it swings the whole faction with it. Those are my 3. Come back and hold me to them. One last thing before the dossier closes. Thank you to my Patreons, and especially our Magos operators, the names on your screen right now. You keep the Cogitator running, and shows like this one exist because of you. Thank you. That is the Tau Empire Faction Dossier in the books. Tau, mid-table on the raw number, but surging, with the most event wins in the game, a clear winning shell in the Retaliation Cadre gunline, a twin lance that cracks armor for its points, and a hard lane in Imperial Knights, where invulnerable saves and wound counts blunt a precision army. To the pilots we covered, Oliver Campbell, Casper Wennerby, and Mark Jenkins, and everyone flying battlesuits in the early data, good hunting, and thank you for the data. Now, this show is an experiment, and you are the playtesters. Was this deep enough? Too deep? Which faction should sit in this chair next? Tell me in the comments. As always, the data shows you what is winning. Reps on the table are what make it yours. This is Sarv from Wardrill, signing out. See you at the next transmission.